A recent survey here in the UK suggests that being teetotal is on the rise, and that means there's a market for a lot more alcohol-free drinks. Today I'm going to be taking a look at some alcohol-free wines, specifically white wines. Hello and welcome to the Grape Explorer, where we celebrate the world of wine. On this channel we do wine education, product reviews and lots of tastings, so if you're interested in wine, consider subscribing. So yes, alcohol-free drinks are on the rise, and certainly for something like beer and some spirits, they've become more and more popular in the UK, but I still think there's an opportunity for more and more wines to actually find their way onto the marketplace. The wines that are available at the moment, in my mind, are quite cheap, and I think that possibly puts people off because they may be associating cheap with poor quality. What I will say is, when I'm going to be tasting these wines, the idea is that I'm really trying to get some of the characteristics I would expect from a wine with alcohol. Now, the process for making these wines is they still have to be fermented. Those sugars in the grapes still have to be converted to alcohol through fermentation. And then after then, there is a de-alcoholization process that takes place, which results in our alcohol-free white wines. I've picked two out today. One has labelled itself specifically as a varietal, one has simply labelled itself as alcohol-free white wine. So we're going to get started with this particular one. Now, I've bought these both from local supermarkets, where I have to say the range of wines available isn't particularly good, although I do understand there are a number of online retailers now who are providing a lot more varieties of white wine. And so I've put a couple of links to some of the websites that I've noticed as part of my research that you may want to check out for yourself that specialise in some of the alcohol-free wines that are available. So, starting with the first one here, like I say, this is just labelled as alcohol-free white wine, calls itself fresh and fruity, talks a little bit about the fact that the alcohol has been removed, to say that it's refreshing, lightly sparkling drink with a fruity green apple flavour and perhaps a touch of sweetness. It's a great alternative to wine for those who do not wish to consume alcohol. Like I say, there is definitely an increasing market for that. I did a video on some alcohol-free wines some time ago now. And I've had a lot of comments since from people who have been seeking out these types of wines, so it's great to know that there is an audience out there for them. So what I'm looking for really is something that I feel is a good representation of a white wine, regardless of whether there's alcohol or not in it. I would expect to see some of the similar qualities throughout. So looking at this one, pale lemon in colour, and actually just holding it up to the light, it does look a little bit spritzy. Aroma intensity? Aroma intensity on this one's pretty good actually, I'd say medium, and do you know what, it really does give off an aroma of wine, so let's get into it properly and see what we're getting. It's a little bit musty, it is green apple, some citrus as well, but it has a kind of, it's almost like a dampness to it, which isn't great, but it's very faint. Yeah, it's definitely got some lemon. There isn't as much apple as perhaps the bottle was suggesting. A little bit of melon as well on this one. So we'll give it one more swirl, then we'll give it a bit of a taste. On the palate, that is sweet. It claims it has a touch of sweetness. I would go a little bit further than that. I'm almost wanting to call that medium sweet. Particularly sweet, does have the spritz that it talked about. On the palate, it's very much apple. Fresh green apple, not unpleasant at all, quite enjoyable actually. So what about some of the other characteristics here? Well, it definitely has some acidity, very light bodied. It's got no length really, I don't think. But I would say, you know, it has got some nice acidity, it retains some mouth-watering qualities about it, which is what you might want from a nice refreshing white wine. And perfectly enjoyable. I mean, it's probably not the right time of year here in the UK to be enjoying a fresh and fruity white wine. I've certainly moved on to reds now as we approach winter. But I do think in the summertime this is something that you would absolutely enjoy. So in terms of balance, I think it has pretty good taste intensity with aroma intensity. It hasn't really got the length for me. It isn't intense or complex, but it was £2.75. It's not an expensive wine at all. And I do think it's perfectly enjoyable. I would call it acceptable. And I definitely think for someone who's looking for an alcohol-free white wine, this is definitely something that you could go for. So putting this one to one side, I'm going to move on to the second one. Now I'm particularly interested in the second one because it does label itself as a single varietal. It's Sauvignon Blanc. This is from Eisberg. I have tried one of their Chardonnays before. From memory, the Chardonnay was again quite sweet, quite fruity. So Eisberg, interestingly, what they make a point of noting on the label is the calorie count. They are saying it's only 29 calories per 125 milliliter serving. And I think in today's society where people have become teetotal because they are thinking a little bit more about their health, being able to advertise something as particularly low calories by glass is particularly good. You know, by comparison, a regular glass of white wine can run around sort of 120 calories. So to say that this is just 29 calories, clearly they are trying to appeal to a certain type of person who's looking to maintain a healthy lifestyle. So let's give this one a go. This one's saying that it's got some of those classic Sauvignon Blanc aromas, so I'm expecting gooseberry and some tropical fruit flavours. It says it's enjoy it chilled, and it gives some food recommendations as well. This has been produced and bottled in Germany, specifically. I don't believe the other one said where it had been produced. This was also a product of Germany, so there you go. Germany leading the world in alcohol-free wine. It's a noisier bottle. Okay. Appearance. I mean, that's almost water. Is there wine in here? This is, I mean, it's almost a green. I'm going to say it's green. It's got no colour to it whatsoever. Hugely fruity on the nose. I've not even swirled it yet. Massively floral and fruity. But I wouldn't say it's necessarily gooseberry. For me, actually, it's like candied apple sweets or candied apricot sweets. It's a little funky as well. Again, I mean, the last one for me was a little bit funky. This one is as well. I've got a feeling that this is going to be particularly sweet. Yeah, it is probably medium dry, this one. It's not as sweet as the last one, but it tastes of pear drops. This one's kind of candied through and through. Medium acidity. The acidity is not as good as the cheaper bottle here. Aroma intensity and palate intensity is kind of medium minus. Incredibly light body, barely any body at all. I mean, you can barely tell that there's any in the glass. No particular length with this one either. Now, what's interesting is this is a branded bottle of wine. This is a supermarket owned in the way that it's been labelled. And this was £2.75. Okay, this one wasn't a great deal more, it was £3.50. But, you know, comparing like for like, this probably represents the best value for money. That's not to say that this one isn't enjoyable. I think what's nice about this one is, and I like sweet things, is it is quite sweet. You know, the more I start to think about it, the more it feels like I'm in a candy store. Again, perfectly enjoyable. But I just feel there's possibly a little bit more characteristics on the palate with the first one than there is with the second one. But that's not to say this isn't enjoyable. I mean, the balance is there because the aroma intensity and the taste intensity is similar. No length, no intensity, and certainly not complex. But again, acceptable. I think what's really interesting is I am particularly limited with the stores where I live in what they're able to offer from an alcohol-free perspective, which is why I think it would be good for me to perhaps get some of these bottles from some of these online retailers. They're charging a little bit more, and that may speak to a little bit of a higher quality in these wines. But overall, no complaints with either of them. You know, they do the job of what they intend to do. They do make a representation of white wine. Obviously with the alcohol stripped out, it is going to lend itself to a very different kind of taste, but they're not unpleasant. They are both sweet, which I think is an interesting side effect from the processes that are taking place. I'm curious to see if that's something that's been added to the wine to enhance them in any way or not. But I do think they are very good representations, and it just goes to show, you know, there is a market out there for alcohol-free wine. I think these are good examples, and it's certainly something that when I'm choosing to have a dry January or a Stoptober, for example, I probably would seek these out, because it's still nice to have something that goes well with other food, that makes you enjoy and pick up a glass and give it a swirl, and I do think there's something here for those. So yeah, good marks all around. Okay, well there we go, that's alcohol-free white wines. So now over to you. Any recommendations you have? Any websites where you've seen alcohol-free wines? Let me know in the comments section below. I'm the Grape Explorer. I look forward to seeing you again soon. Cheers.